138 Openings of Wisdom by the Ramchal, Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto. This is opening 29. And I think I'm going to stick with mirror time for now. It's a very interesting concept, and sometimes up until now I've been switching off the words. Every day a new word that equals 138, but I think I might take a word and just dwell on it for a while. The concept of mirror time. Fascinating concept of time, and apparently it's been around for a while, but I just discovered it yesterday, and it was 9:20 a.m. when I officially discovered it, and I put the clock into a mirror, and the reflected image of the clock shows a different time on the clock, and that time is somehow related to the time that the real time. So let's say, and there's a formula to do it. It's 1160 minus the reflected image time, and that gives you the real time. So let's say it was 9:20 a.m. yesterday, and there's a reason why I'm repeating this, because today it's opening 29, so it's the same digits, so it's like a recursive kind of thought pattern. So yesterday it was 9:20 a.m. and if you have just a clock, you put a clock in the mirror, 9:20, it will show as if it's saying 2:40. So 2:40 p.m., let's say in this case, and you could do this with a 24-hour clock too, but I haven't seen any clocks that are like 24 hours that are like a physical clock. There might be some, but anyway, for me, 12-hour clocks are better. It's more manageable. You just do 2 sets of 12. And so basically, it was 9:20 a.m. and you put the clock in the mirror and you see 2:40. So that means that when you get to 2:40 p.m. that day, which I did, you think about the same place you were at 9:20, and it becomes a singularity. So right now I'm seeing it's great for lucid, clear memory, because right now it's a day later, and I'm seeing the clock that I looked at yesterday, 9:20, and I said, I'm going to make a phone call, because that's part of the work that I do, is a phone call or email. And at 9:20, it's going to be registered at 9:20. And then when it gets to 2:40, I'm going to reflect back to it. But see, here's how life happens when you're planning for it. As I think a famous musician said that, maybe it was the Beatles, or John Lennon or something. Life is what happens when you're planning for it. So in my mind, I said, okay, now it's 9:20, and at 2:40, I'm going to call a number with the same area code. So not only is it the same time, the same area code, they're matching. It's like a real singularity. It's like 9:20 is in Wisconsin, so I have two numbers in Wisconsin, and it's going to parallel 9:20 a.m. and it's going to parallel 2:40. But guess what? Before 2:40, maybe 5 minutes before that, 10 minutes before that, someone called up, and it was a discussion that wasn't just a regular discussion. It was more of an involved discussion, and the time went by, and I missed the 2:40 thing. And by the time I realized that the phone call was over, it was already 2:49. So I missed that point. So that was a calculation that didn't happen when I actually planned for it. And so I made a concession for that, to say that since life has rough edges, you can't plan for life. As smart as you are, and as the best mathematics you have, life will always mess it up some way. I mean, not always, but it can mess it up some way. There is a lot of predictability too, and that's what this is looking to attain or obtain is that predictability. But life oftentimes throws in new variables that takes your mathematics and throws it out the window. And so I made a special concession, like a calculation, like a recalculating, that if life happens at the time of the mirror time, then there's a 15-minute window. It opens up to 15 minutes because it used to be that it's a 6-minute window on either side. Every minute, let's just say 10:33, so that 10:39 or 10:27 is within that window. So if something happened at 10:29, it's still considered 10:33. If something happened at 10:35, it's still 10:33. Because now, these days, a minute is so fast. I mean, I guess any time, but I mean, it feels like time's going faster now. But it's hard to get it that exact, that you are pinpointing it down to the minute. It just doesn't seem possible. So I gave that window of 6 minutes, but now because other things are coming in, I can extend that up to 15 minutes as considered the minute in question. So all that to say that I'm going to stick with mirror time. It's opening 29, and I discovered mirror time on September 2nd, which is 9/2, which was yesterday, and it was 9:20 a.m. And none of this stuff I planned, none of it, which makes it really neat. It shows that it's coming from somewhere. It's really coming from somewhere. And so, opening 29, mirror time equals 138. That's what this book is called, 138 Openings of Wisdom, and that's how I discovered mirror time, because I looked in my Gematria database and I put in 138, and I saw all the choices of things. It could be Donald Trump, organic spices, Gematria is real, Gematria is here. Hundreds and hundreds of words that can equal 138. And not to mention the Hebrew words. I started with the Hebrew words. Tzemach, Levanon, Chelek, Menachem, etc. And not etc., but etc. is etc. Joke. And so, where was I? You're right here. Okay, let's just get started. Opening 29, mirror time, organic spices, and Donald Trump. What do they have in common? They all equal 138 in English Gematria. That was the thing. Opening 29, the line shines within the Sefirot through a garb. The Sefirot are what come forth from the space brought into being at the time of the Tzimtzum. I wonder if they could calculate what time the Tzimtzum actually happened. If we could calculate it. Each Sefirah is a part of the residue. With each Sefirah lies an inner essence that exits in virtue of the line of Ein Sof, blessed be He, which enters into it. The line shines within the inner essence of each Sefirah as the soul of the souls. And in this aspect is completely equal on all levels. However, the soul, which is the garb within which the line is clothed, is made to match each partsuf according to what it is. And this is what distinguishes the different partsufim from one another. The difference is not in the line, but in its garb, which is the soul. Having discussed the line and the residue in general terms, we must now examine the details and discuss how the Sefirot came into being. The proposition consists of 4 parts. I've said this in the past, but I like to say it every now and then, is that the style of the Ramchal in this book in particular. Maybe he does it in other books. I haven't learned many of his other books, but in this particular book, he'll say some ideas, and he'll say, this is in this many parts. Part 1, part 2, and explain, and he says it always in this many parts. And what's interesting is the word in Hebrew for part is chelek, and chelek has a numerical value of 138. And this book is called 138 Openings of Wisdom. So I don't know if he did that intentionally to make a reference, like a self-referencing thing to his book, or not, but it's interesting. And again, I don't know if he does this in other books. So if he does in other books, then it's just an interesting coincidence. Or if he did intentionally, then that's also interesting. Okay, the proposition consists of 4 parts. Part 1, the Sefirot are what came forth. This explains the external structure of the Sefirot. Part 2, within each Sefirah. This explains the inner essence of the Sefirot. Part 3, the line shines. This is a level of interiority that is even more concealed. Part 4, and in this aspect it is completely equal. This explains the difference between the first and the second levels of interiority. Part 1. The Sefirot are what come forth from the space brought into being at the time of the Tzimtzum. As explained earlier in opening 26, this is the space or place that gives existence to what exists, and anything not already rooted in it cannot come into being afterwards. Accordingly, before this place existed, nothing could exist. After this place was produced, the Sefirot came forth, emerging in accordance with the nature of the place. The place is such that nothing exists except the residue, for that was all that was left when the place came into being. As discussed earlier in opening 27, that could be revealed came forth already in the residue. If so, the Sefirot come only from the residue. Each Sefirah is a part of the residue. The name residue was applicable as long as no further action took place beyond the fact that this is what was left as a result of the Tzimtzum. See above, opening 26, part 1. In other words, before the line began to activate the residue, the latter was defined as being what remained of the light of Ein Sof after the Tzimtzum, a residue. Afterwards, the line began to activate the residue, and its various parts were structured and made into worlds and parsufim, so that each Sefirah, wherever it may be, is one part of the residue. Clearly, each Sefirah must be part of the residue, because the residue is the totality of all that is destined to exist in the Sefirot in every place they are. The residue consists of the totality of everything as a single whole. In this aspect, the residue is therefore called only the root of what was destined to come afterwards. But the truth is that it is the totality of all that is destined to be. Everything that came afterwards is only the details of the residue. Every detail is part of the overall whole. If so, everything that exists in the Sefirot on every level is part of the residue. Even though many different levels emerge later, this does not belittle the fact, belie. He wrote belie, but maybe it's a mistake, that belie the fact that ultimately everything does not belittle the fact, maybe belittle. Anyway, the fact that ultimately everything is rooted and derives from the residue. The various different levels could emerge only where we find them, but this is not a reason to say that they are not part of the supreme residue, for as explained earlier, what was not initially included in the whole cannot exist afterwards as a detail. Part 2. Within each Sephirah lies an inner essence. The inner essence, the Pnimiyut, is the interiority of the Sephirah. Within the residue, everything follows the form of Adam, as will be explained at greater length below in opening 31, and as discussed earlier in opening 27. In terms of the soul and the body, this inner essence is the soul, the Neshama, of the vessel, and within it is the soul of the soul, just as in the case of man, as will be discussed further below, that exists in virtue of the line of Ein Sof, blessed be He, which enters into it. For every connection between two things always generates an additional intermediary between them. Every connection between two things always generates an additional intermediary between them. It's the Ramchal saying this. It's not Christianity. Let's see this again. That exists in virtue of the line of the Ein Sof, blessed be He, which enters into it. Okay, let's say this one more time, because this is not Christianity. This is the Ramchal. Gotta read this thing here. I'm going to read it one more time. For every connection between two things always generates an additional intermediary between them. So if you're going to take this by logical extension, two things, two of anything, that would mean God, could mean, I'm speaking boldly now, but I'm just pondering here. We, as individual entities, are one thing. A thing doesn't mean physical thing. It means any thing, physical or non-physical. It's any entity, physical or non-physical. It's a thing. God is also something. I'm not saying physical, non-physical, metaphysical, spiritual, any of those things. God is a reality. So every connection between two things always generates an additional intermediary. And that's what he's saying here. Maybe it's lost in translation. I'm not sure what the Hebrew says, but the inner essence exists in virtue of the line of Ein Sof because it was actually generated by the entry of the line into the residue. The truth is that when the line entered into the residue, a brilliant radiance shone from it. Like, how does he know this? I really would love to know how he knows that when the line came into the residue, a brilliant radiance. Did he see this in a vision? Are we able to see this? Is this objective? Is this scientific fact? Right now it's faith for me. The truth is that when the line entered the residue, he's saying like this, that's the truth. The truth is when the line is the residue, a brilliant radiance shone from it, accommodating itself to the place it entered. Whether I understand it or not, I like the flow of it. So I'm reading it just because it's like it resonates with my soul, I guess. Accommodating itself to the place it entered. This is the soul of the vessel, and this soul is the underlying root of the individual mental powers, the mochim, that constitute the particular soul of each of the various different partsufim. For each partsuf has its own unique mental powers, depending on its level. These souls are all garb for the line of Ein Sof, blessed be He, who does not change in any place. The various different mental powers are what each of the different Partsufim receives individually from the line, but the line itself is the same everywhere. I gave the illustration, I think it was yesterday or maybe the day before, about pi, the circle and the line, wondering if that's like the kav within the residue. But anyway, let's continue. Part 3. The line shines within the inner essence of each sephirah as the soul of the souls. The shining of the line within the inner essence corresponds to the concept of the irrigation of the tree, mentioned in various places in the Zohar. See Tikkun Zohar, second introduction, 17:1. The irrigation of the tree is not the same as the mental powers, for these vary according to the individual structure of each Partsuf, as explained in the writings of the Ari. Part 4. And in this aspect, it is completely equal on all levels. This is necessarily the case, as it states in the Zohar, Ki Tetzei, the 6th Parsha, 281. He does not change in any place. The fact is obvious, for the line constitutes the perfect action of Ein Sof, blessed be He, in executing all the bounded laws of the residue, as explained earlier in opening 25. We may discern the same perfection in Keter, the highest of all the laws, and Sefirot, just as in Malchut, which is the last. For everything that Ein Sof does, small or great, He does to perfection. If so, the line is the same on all levels. It is indeed fitting that Ein Sof does not change at all, and that only the Sefirot change. This is because the Sefirot shine according to the readiness of the created realms and beings to receive. Since there are differences between the degree of readiness of different receivers, there are differences between the Sefirot. However, the line of Ein Sof shines in accordance with His perfection, and change is not applicable on this level. Again, I need to ask, where is the Messiah in regards to this? When this is all happening, in Jewish writings it says the spirit of the Messiah was there in the beginning. So where is the Messiah in this whole equation? The difference between the line and the Sefirot is also seen in the soul and the body. The body is divided into different limbs and organs, and the nature of one limb is not like that of another. However, the soul is all one. We cannot say, and Neshama is Gematria Pashut, 395. I heard that one from Arnold Cohen Loro. Neshama is one thing, just Pashut, simple. We cannot say that the part of the soul is the nose and is not the same as the part of the soul in the arm. The entire soul exists equally in every part of the body. It is only the actions of the soul that vary according to the body parts involved, but the entire body is governed by one and the same soul. This means that the soul governs all the different actions of the body without itself changing in any way. The line is like the soul in the body. For as explained earlier, the various powers are divided up in the residue like bodily limbs, but the line governs it like the soul. If so, the line must be the same on all levels. These two ideas, that the Sefirot shine according to the readiness of the receivers, while line is like the soul and the body, are implicit in the Zohar. The Master of the Universe deals with all the different creatures in each generation according to their deeds, just as the soul acts in accordance with each individual limb. Depending on the limb with which a man performs a mitzvah, the soul is said to have the corresponding attribute. Zohar, Pinchas 256b. A third distinction that must be made in this connection is between the root of the rule of unity, Yichud, and that of the rule of reward and punishment, which I have already discussed. The root of the rule of reward and punishment lies in the Sefirot, and since the rule of reward and punishment is responsive to men's deeds, the Sefirot change accordingly. However, the rule of unity goes toward a single goal in every action with no change at all. This is the line which is equal on all levels. You must understand that the equality of the line on all levels is absolute. For sometimes two things may be of equal value, or they may be equal in a certain aspect in virtue of which they are in the same position to come under one category. In some cases they may be completely equal. However, the equality of the line is absolute on all levels, and this should be obvious from all the proofs we have adduced, because the action of the line is literally equal on every level without any change at all. However, the soul, which is the garb within which the line is clothed, the garb, the levush, a garment corresponding to the tselem, the form or likeness, is an intermediary between the soul and the body, relating to the body. When the soul clothes itself in this garb, it executes the necessary functions in accordance with the nature of that body. But when it is outside of the body, it does not act in that way. This is the garb with which the Holy One, blessed be He, clothes the soul when it enters the body. And the Zohar, Mishpatim 96b, explains that if it were not for this garb, the soul would have no connection whatever with the body. Prior to its entry into this world, the soul was like an angel, without an evil inclination and without free will. However, on entry into the body, the soul became invested with an evil inclination and with free will. This is the result of its being clothed in this garb of the body. Just as the garb of the soul affects the way it acts in the body, so too all the different garbs of the various Sefirot and Partzufim affect and change the action of the line clothed within them in accordance with their particular nature. We find this idea in the statement of the Zohar, in the Zohar Truma 139a, that bronze is a garment worn by the indwelling presence in order to give nourishment to the realm of the husks, klipot. Similarly, the Tikkun Zohar in Tikkun 22, 65a, states that the clothes that he wears in the evening, he does not wear in the morning. For the essence is always one and the same, but he clothes himself in different garbs and executes all the different actions that he performs according to the nature of these various garbs. We see this written explicitly, and he wore righteousness as a coat of mail, and he put on garments of vengeance for clothing. Isaiah 59:17. Thus, when the Supreme Will wanted to bring, again, where is the Messiah in this? Is he the garment of God? I'd like to know how the Messiah ties into this equation. Thus, when the Supreme Will wanted to bring in a line to govern the residue, which is as distant from him as the body from the soul, an intermediary garment was needed between them just as the soul needs an intermediary garment in order to connect with the body. It is through this garb that he does what he has to do in the residue. It's made to match each partsuf according to what it is. Each partsuf has its own distinctive garb depending on the governmental power with which it needs to receive the line, which is equal on all levels. The partsufim can only receive from the line through this garment. If so, this garment must exist in each partsuf according to its nature, in order that the line may act equally through each one of these different garbs. And this is what distinguishes the partsufim from one another. For all the different aspects of the Sefirot above correspond to the order of the form of Adam as we find it here below in this world, as will be discussed later. For this form is rooted above on all levels, and just as we can make inferences from the Sefirot to add to our understanding of the form of Adam, so we can make inferences about the Sefirot from the form of Adam as we find it in this world, as will be discussed later. Now we see that all human bodies have the same general form. The differences between one person and another in terms of character traits, wisdom, and intelligence lie in the soul. Similarly, the differences in one and the same person at different times and in all that pertains to the conduct of the body and its actions derive from the soul. Let's see here. Okay, this is a long one. Okay, it is truly in the upper realms, and so you will find throughout the writings of the Ari and in all the teachings of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. The fundamental concept here is that of the mental powers, the mochin, these are the inner essence, the pnimiyut, the soul of all the partsufim. They are the source of all government, and each partsuf is governed by its mental powers. These mental powers change in the partsufim themselves at different times, thereby affecting and changing their nature and functioning, as I will explain to you below in its proper place. These mental powers are what we call the garb of this inner line, which is the soul of the souls. It is through these different garbs that the partsufim are distinguished from one another in all their various different aspects, both qualitatively, whether they incline towards kindness, judgment, or mercy, and quantitatively in terms of whether they are great or small in stature or value. For according to what they are, so they receive light from the line garbed within them. Thus, the difference is not in the line, but in this garb, which is the soul. For the difference between the different partsufim in order of their stature could be seen as problematic, because this depends on how close to or far away from Ein Sof, blessed be He, they are. But since the line of Ein Sof, blessed be He, is completely equal on all levels, it would seem that they should be equal in stature. However, as I explained, although the line is exactly the same, the garments are different, and each partsuf receives from the line according to the nature of the garb. Thus, the partsufim may be great or small, depending on the preparedness of the soul of any given partsuf to receive from the line within it. From the discussion in this and the previous opening, you should understand that there are three aspects to the Sefirot. Number one, the vessels. Two, the mental powers. Three, the inner and encompassing lights. The vessels are the different levels of the residue, the laws that exist after the concealment of perfection. Through the inner and encompassing lights, Ein Sof is found in all different levels. The mental powers are the garments of the line and are made to suit each partsuf depending on what it is. It is through these mental powers that Ein Sof, blessed be He, connects with and governs each one according to its particular nature, as discussed above. The mental powers, including nefesh, ruach, neshama, chaya, and yechida in their own right. The chaya and yechida here are not the same as the encompassing lights of which we speak in connection with the inner and encompassing lights, see opening 28. For otherwise, various passages in the writings of the Ari would be completely contradictory. However, I will not expand on this now because it is something that is quite visible in the passages which speak about the mental powers and those which speak about Ein Sof, blessed be He, and the encompassing level. The way to resolve the contradictions is, as I have explained here, and this way you should find everything to be clear. For the lights have their own individual way of spreading forth, and thus they reach the Partsufim in the same way discussed there, be it in the garb of wisdom or the undershirt of understanding, all as discussed there. In the prophetic vision, the Partsufim thus appear with their mental powers together with the line, which is the inner essence, equal in all of them.